Yeah, me too.
Hey, how are you, Kim? Thank you so much. I'm gonna take some of that right now.
Do you want some cake or any chips or any
No,
candy?
honey, I'm good.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, that's good. Pretty good. Oh, wow. I know, one guy, well, the kids say they go, oh, grandkids out of health. Yeah, really. What's wrong? What are you trying to say? No, it's not.
Lord.
That's right, yeah. She's waiting to talk to her mom. Oh. Her mom is looking for her. Yeah. It's done now.
How's that cake? How's the cake?
Oh. Moist. Good.
Good, okay. You'll have to take some home. No, maybe John would like a piece.
I felt embarrassed when I had to bear myself today. all that to get through.
That's pretty funny.
Hello, dear.
We skip like that, right?
Jane, where do you live?
Well, now I live in out by Bluffton.
Oh, there it is.
I used to live
Hey.
at Times Corner
Can you hear me?
for 30.
Yes, you look beautiful.
Thank you.
I love your hair.
Thanks. I gave myself a makeover.
She usually lives
I love it.
Thanks. I went today and had it. I was My hair was always long, and I love long hair. And then a few years ago, I cut it, and then I'm like, oh, I really wanted to grow again, but I hated how it looked. So I went today, and I said, this is the day. I'm just going to get it cut.
I think it looks fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
Beautiful.
So we are just waiting on Michelle. By the way, somebody brought in this book tonight to tell me specifically that they thought it was one of the best books they've ever read.
Oh, she will love to know that.
Isn't that awesome?
Yes, I think it's so good. It's one of her best.
Yeah, I really loved it.
I'm so glad. Now I gotta fix my hair. Your hair looks fabulous.
Oh, you always look great. Are you kidding me?
Oh, I'm like, oh man, I'm feeling a little rough tonight, y'all.
No, you listen, there's never a rough for you.
Oh, thanks. I've been running after kids and making dinner. I'm like, I gotta go.
I'm just looking to see if I can turn up this volume. I need these to see these things. Let's just see. Volume. Can you ladies hear this? Can you hear me or hear the TV? You don't hear anything?
She's not talking.
Oh, can you say something?
Hi, everybody.
Can you hear? Okay, okay, yep. I'm just turning you up as far as I can.
Can people see me and I can't see them?
Yeah, not everybody's here, but when later on, I'll flip the computer around and you can see everybody.
Hi.
I think, do you know Peggy Sue Wells?
Yes.
Yes, okay, well, she's a good friend, and obviously you know about her. She may show up tonight.
Oh, fun.
Oh, she's here, where is she? Oh, she's on a phone call in the car, so she'll be coming in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh man, everyone's helping me messing with my hair.
Okay. It is looking good. You know what, let me ask you. I did this for the first time last month. What do I hit to record? Hey, here she's
You're
coming.
recording right now, actually.
Oh, I'm recording now?
Yeah.
Okay, that's probably why I couldn't figure it out, because I was like, oh, here she is.
There she is.
My computer locked up just as I was trying to log on. I'm like, well, of course it did. So
It
anyway.
always happens that way.
Yeah. Well, listen, I was praying because the last time I tried to connect with you, Michelle.
Was a hot mess. I
It was
know.
a hot
What in the
mess.
world?
Yes, I was looking at your desk, but there was nobody there, so I'm calling Michelle. Michelle.
We had the time. I forget what happened. Oh, I know. You did run home from the church. Something happened.
Right. Exactly.
Yes. So I thought you weren't going to be there. I'm like, all right, well.
I guess I blew her off.
Came back in. I'm like, there's somebody there now. All right. Yeah.
We're just going to wait a minute because I have some more people coming in the door, so I'll give them a couple of minutes to, because I do have people that are here, just so you know. So it's not just the three of us. So
Okay. I just got back from the TV interview. It went really well.
good.
Good. I knew it would.
2 hours before I left today, look what came in the mail.
Yay! It's such a pretty cover. We love the cover so much.
I love it. I was doing a happy dance because I really wanted to have it so I could have it in my hands for tonight.
Yay! Well, I had mine for the TV thing, and it was so blingy. It didn't. They kept going. Can you hold it? Can you hold it? So I had to get the art copy because it was too blingy for TV.
Wow.
That's good to know to bring both then.
So bring both because
That's a good idea. So are you gonna? I'm coming next week. What is it? Next weekend for the conference in
Chicago.
Chicago. Yeah.
I'm gonna be there.
I know
Bethany
you
will be there.
Oh, I know.
Take pictures.
Are you
We
gonna?
will.
Are you gonna have your books there as well?
Yes.
Okay, good.
I assume we're allowed to. I'll bring them if we're allowed to. Yeah.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Good,
yes, I'm
because
gonna
I
bring
want to
them.
get some autographed copies while I'm there.
Oh, I wish. Maybe, hey, Bethany, if you sign some of yours, I could sign them and sell those so we can have,
That
right?
would be great.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay. I'll try to get some in the mail this week then.
Yeah.
That would be so great.
All right. I just want to say that I love Zoom.
Yes.
I know, so do we. It's like the
Yeah.
best. Except
So,
it doesn't work.
yes, as long as it works. So Bethany, you said I'm already recording.
We're already recording.
So should I like stop the recording and start over since we've been having all these chats, or what should I do? I don't want to do
It's gonna
anything.
be one long video, even if you pause it, because I think
Okay.
you could stop it and then hit start record, and then maybe it'll give you 2, but usually I have to leave the meeting and then it like does its export kind of thing.
Yeah, that's,
so
I don't want to touch it and mess it up. Can I edit at the beginning and edit some of it, or?
yeah, when you get the raw thing off, you can just trim it down to where you want to start.
Okay,
And-
we'll do that.
And over it, yeah.
Okay, all right. So we're going to get started.
Right.
And I'm
I
going
like
to
your
need some of these at some point in time so I can actually read a few things.
I have mine in there somewhere.
Okay, everybody, we're going to get started. So we have maybe 10 women sitting here with me.
Oh, yay.
So they all say hi. I'm going to turn this around after a while at the end so you can see everybody.
Okay.
I just have one thing. Before we close, I really felt that, and this has only happened twice to me. One was with Thelma Wells and one was with Liz Curtis Higgs last year, that I really felt that I wanted one of you or whomever to pray at the end.
Yeah.
Okay? Okay.
Love to. Yeah.
All right.
Yay.
Okay. So, well, welcome everyone. This is Jo Massaro with Yahweh Sisterhood Book Club, and we're so happy to have you with us for many reasons tonight. If you do not know what we do, we are a monthly book club that meets the first Thursday of every month. And the great thing about it is you just don't read a book, but you actually get to meet the author and ask questions. And it's just unbelievable. You know, I've read so many books, and I've always wished I knew more about even the writing process, and even knowing about, you know, your thoughts and how the book developed and all those type of things. Well, we get to know a lot of those things now that we get to talk to everybody. And something new is about to happen in, let's see, January. Because we can only interview 12 authors out of the year. And what I wanted to do was to have an opportunity, because I have so many other authors that are asking to be on. So I've created a companion part of the book club, and it's called In the Midst of the Journey. And starting January, I'm going to be interviewing someone new every month besides doing the book club, and then putting those interviews out. So it could be authors, it could be other, you know, other women. I'm just, you know, whoever God puts in my path. So I'm very excited about that. And so let me just see. Why don't you guys share a little bit about yourselves? And let me just say first that I met you, Michelle, a year and a half ago at Taylor University Writers Conference. And what was so cool, at the end, I came up to you and I hand you a card and I'm like, hi, I'm Jo Massaro with Yahweh Sisterhood Book Club. Would you be willing to speak, you know, at our book club? And you were like, oh yeah, you know, and you were just like, and you were,
I was
oh,
like, yes, please.
yes, and you were like, I've heard of you. And I was like, what?
Yep. I
Yes.
knew of you because of Bethany and Kyle had told me about
Yes.
you. I was like, because I remember when she said Yahweh Sisterhood Book Club, I was like, a long time ago, I did a book with my friend Gina Maselli called the Yahweh Sisterhood. And it was like, yes, right? So compilation books. And I was like, so I immediately was drawn to your name. And yeah, I was so glad you were as delightful as I knew you would be. So it's fun.
Right back at you. So that's how we met. But you want to share a little bit about yourself? And
Okay, sure. Yeah, I am from Indiana, still living in Southern Indiana. I'm a journalism grad from Indiana University. So my background is in, in reporting and in writing children's books. I sort of fell into the whole children's book thing. I've shared this story before, but it's pretty wild. What happened is I was working for a magazine out in Texas, and we left the newspaper business. Basically, it was too crazy to have two little girls and be doing all these late night reporting. So I was a sports writer. So I'd cover games at night with a kid on my hip, right? And then go file a story. And I was like, God, there's got to be a better way. So I got a job at this really cool Christian magazine out in Texas. We moved out there with our two little ones, Jeff and I, and everything just exploded. I think it was that one act of obedience. We walked in obedience. We got there, and I didn't know I ever wanted to write children's books. I was going to be the next, hard-nosed reporter. And once you have kids, you kind of soften up a little bit. And
yes.
the big, soft marshmallow, I was like, oh. And I really found I enjoyed writing for kids. I didn't really know how to do it, but I figured it out through research. And then also at that magazine, they needed somebody to do ghostwriting. And I shared the story before where I was like, I didn't know what that meant when my editor called me and said, we need you to do some ghostwriting. And I was like, the Holy Ghost? Because I have that, but I know what you're talking about. And he meant, no, we need you to write in somebody else's voice. And it just was crazy because I'd never done that before. They tell you your whole life in journalism to find your voice. And so they wanted me to lose mine and find somebody else's, which just seemed so foreign to me. But I found out that it was something I was good at and I really enjoyed it. So I've kind of been all over the place. I always tease I'll write anything that's not illegal or immoral, but that's not exactly true anymore because I've been so focused on writing for kids and women that it's kind of taken up all my time, and I love it. And so that's kind of been my journey. I started teaching at writers' conferences really back in like 2000. I started teaching at writers' conferences. I only had a couple of books under, I mean, really like a lot of articles and things, and my books didn't come out till like that next year. But Bethany's motto is teach as you learn, learn as you teach as you learn. And I started doing that without even knowing that was a thing, just so I could go to writers' conferences at a discounted rate if I taught. And so I've got to meet amazing people like you, Joe, and like that's where Bethany was at the Florida Christian Writers Conference about 6 years ago. So it's just one big family, and I'm just a big ball of emotions because all these writers are really like my family. Some of my closest friends I've met at conferences over the years. So that's kind of been my journey, and I am so glad to still be in the game.
So are we. We're glad you're in it.
Well, thank you.
So Bethany, what about you? What's going on with you?
Feels like a lot these days, I will say. My husband is in the military, and lots of him traveling overseas and spontaneous single parenting is what I call it, at a moment's notice. But we were in youth ministry for a long time before he went back into the military. So he was a Marine when we got married. We did youth ministry for about 10 years, and now he's in the Air Force. And just been writing for 7 years professionally now. Went to a writers' conference and had my first book sold. Next year I met Michelle. And but that first conference changed my life. And what I really love is marketing and PR. And so I am almost finished with my master's program at Southern New Hampshire, getting a degree in communications with that focus. And it's been interesting as we have a book that just released and a mom devotional that's coming out November 19th is what I saw on Amazon. And the 2 different marketing plans they were having for both books and having to really kind of put some of this knowledge to the test. And so it's been kind of busy, crazy, but I'm doing good. I got 3 little boys, so I'm a boy mama, which is fun because the mom book, Michelle is a mama girls, and she's a GG now, and I've still got 3 boys at home, and so we really come at that whole thing with the perspectives. We tried to cover the whole range of what moms go through and pull in stories where neither one of us had a personal interest. So that's kind of where we're at right now. It was a lot of marketing.
Lot of marketing.
Yeah. So you guys do your individual thing, but you also work together.
Yes.
Yes. So
Which
tell
keeps
a
us
little bit about
completely
that.
sane. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. We have to have each other. I think, this can be kind of a solitary journey if you're just writing on your own. And that's why it's great to have these book clubs and these writers groups and these writers conferences, because most of us just kind of hole up behind our computers and work and send things off. And your only contact with other people is when you go to the grocery store. And this is kind of our lives when we're writers. So it's nice to have co-authors once in a while, people to collaborate with and brainstorm with, and just kind of do life together, all of us. So it's sense for us to do a couple books together, and it won't be the last 2. We think we've got some other ones. We're excited.
Well, I just want to give a plug to your mom, Bethany.
Yeah.
I had said this earlier, but Johnny was on last month.
I have that book.
And I've got some of the best reviews. I was just telling Bethany before you came on that one of the ladies came in and said it was one of the best books I've ever read.
Oh,
isn't that just wonderful? So here it is. Before we even talk about Platinum Faith, make sure you get your copy.
Yes.
Because we just love your mom.
Thank you. She's wonderful. I mean,
She really is.
I agree.
So we're here to talk about this, baby.
Platinum Faith.
Look at that.
I know. I love the bling. It's so perfect.
All the bling on it. I love it.
We love it too. When we saw it for the first time, actually Bethany broke into tears. Because we hadn't seen it. When we went to Nashville for the CPE, to Christian Product Expo, to do a signing and do some publicity for the launch of it. And our publisher came walking in the hall, and all we saw were like glimmers because it kind of caught the sunlight, and we're like, "Is that our cover?" Because we hadn't seen it in person, and then we had a picture, like we're both like we're just blubbering kids. Like, we're so excited. Like every book, we have over 90 books now, but every book is like a new child. We're like, "Oh my gosh, we're so happy!" So yeah, every time you hold it up, our heart skips a beat.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, I said earlier how thrilled I was to get it, like 3 hours ago in the mail, and I was doing my happy dance. I can't imagine what you guys went through. But in your book, it has an incredible dedication of forward at the beginning. How did that happen?
That's Michelle.
Yeah. So Victoria Osteen wrote our forward. Such a dear,
Beautiful.
we've worked together over the years. When I worked for the Ministry magazine out in Texas, it wasn't theirs, but it was kind of a sister ministry.
Mhm.
And I didn't know her, but I knew her father-in-law, John Osteen. We knew his ministry, and Jeff and I had always, been partners with him, really liked him when we lived in Texas. And Victoria and I, it's a cool story of how we met, but it was basically through some of my children's books that I'd given to her children. She has two kids that are a little younger than my kids. And anyway, we ended up working together. Just God orchestrated it. And we've done some things together over the years. And she's just, there are some people who don't like them and people who love them. And there's usually no in between. But I'm telling you, that is one of the finest families I've ever been around. I've ghostwritten for some of the big ministers out there, a lot of the ones you see on TV, but Victoria is the real deal. She and Joel are precious, precious people. Their hearts are right. They do so much for people and charity and traveling all over the country, encouraging people to be the best that they are in God and to follow their callings. And I love her. So she grew up working in her family's jewelry store.
Yes.
Her mother looks like a Vera Ellen, like kind of like old Hollywood, that real classy, gorgeous. Her mom is just beautiful, like Victoria. And that was her business. They had a jewelry store, and Victoria worked in it growing up, as many of us work in our family's businesses. And so as soon as we came up with Platinum Faith, I told Bethany, I said, I'm going to ask Victoria if she'll do our forward, because it's kind of cool, because we talk about platinum jewelry in this, and the fact that she knows a lot about all of that stuff. It would be kind of a neat thing if she would be, because she's a woman of faith and she knows a lot about platinum, and it would just be a cool thing if she would do it. But I didn't know if she would, because they get asked to do so much stuff and typically just do things for family. So we are truly honored and blessed and grateful that she took time out of her crazy busy schedule to write our forward. So yeah, that was just kind of icing on the cake after everything else. We were so grateful. She's been really, really supportive.
Well, many times we think gold is so precious, but when I started to read what she was talking about and what you talk about in the book, it's like, oh my gosh. And there's not as much platinum, as you were saying, as there is, gold. And so maybe you could tell us a little bit, either one of you or both, about what makes platinum so special.
Bethany, you had the rare chapter, so maybe you should talk about that.
Yeah.
So one of the interesting things is it's extremely rare. I think it's 3 times more rare than gold. I don't want to say the wrong, when I'm being recorded, I don't want to say the wrong numbers. But what's interesting, when we were doing the research for this book, when platinum was still sort of undiscovered for how valuable it really was and how rare it really was, there were governments who would have people throw it out into like the rivers and the seas and stuff,
Right.
because they didn't want it mixing with gold, which is what they were looking for, and they didn't want it mistaken for silver. So they had this precious, rare, pure platinum, and they were throwing it away. And so we talk about that in the book, that something can be super rare and super special, but if you don't know how valuable it is, you can waste it or you can lose it. And that is the one chapter, I think, that really helps drive home the point, along with Michelle's Precious chapter, where we really focused on the reader and saying, you have to know how precious you are and how rare you are to understand how much God loves you, so that you can take this journey of faith. And those 2 chapters were next to each other towards the middle of the book. And I don't know if that was really a God thing, because as we moved through the elements, it was like you had to get to this point where you had to come back to who you are in Christ and then keep going on the faith elements. I mean, looking back, I think it was such a God thing that it worked out that way. Don't you?
I absolutely do. We didn't plan it, that way at all, but it's exactly what she said. We often would have a conversation while we were writing. We went away on a couple of writing retreats during the process of doing this, and one was at this lake house owned by a friend of mine named Pat Bolton in Georgia. It was somewhere in Georgia, I don't, like in the sticks. It was beautiful on a lake, and we would sit there for hours in our dueling lazy boys, going back and forth and writing for hours and just talking to each other. Such a great time of just really getting in touch with God and spending that time with each other and just hearing what we need to do next. I mean, truly every day was like this 12 to 15 hours of just intense writing and listening for what God had to say to us. And in the rare and in the precious thing, we realize that until women know who they are and how much God loves them, then it's really hard to feel like you can trust God to walk that journey of faith. Because until you know how much He loves you and the plan that He has for you, and that He chose you before you were ever born, and that He adopted you into His family, and that He has this amazing call just for you because you're that special, that rare, and that you're that valuable. And we talk about how, people who doubt their value, if you just look at the cross, that's proof of value.
Amen.
One of the things in my chapter about being precious is how to determine the value of something. And there's a couple of different criteria. One of them is who was the previous owner. And we use the example, Shaquille O'Neal's, his old smelly tennis shoes went for like $720,000 or something on eBay. Pretty sure my old Converse aren't going to make that on eBay, right? But because Shaquille O'Neal, who's like this amazing basketball player, or Michael Jordan, they've all done this. Those guys who sold these smelly tennis shoes is because of their greatness in the sport. People wanted to have them as like a collectible. And so that proves how valuable they are. Just not any tennis shoes, but because they're owned by those guys. And we're owned by, it says that we are owned by him. We are his. God owns us. And because of that, we are valuable. No matter how you feel about yourself, we are worth something. And the other thing is how much people are willing to pay for it. In real estate, it's the market goes up and down, but how much your house is worth now depends on what the market is, how much people are willing to pay for real estate right now. Well, God gave his only son to purchase us, for our sins. It's like the cross itself. Every time I see a cross, whether it's in the clouds or on a church or just in anything, I think that right there is just proof of how valuable I am to the Lord. That he gave his only begotten son for me, so I could have this communion with him for the rest of my life. And we just wanted to drive those points home in the book, that no matter what's happened to you or where you've been or what you've done, that does not diminish your value or your rarity and how precious you are to the Heavenly Father. Once you get that, pretty much everything else can hang on that. The faith walk will be much easier, and because you can trust the Heavenly Father as he leads you through it.
Amen. I think we're having a little church here.
We're having church. We are.
Now, I may be wrong, but is there a story about how this book came about? Like you were going to do a proposal and it...
Bethany, you tell this one.
Okay. Because I was listening to an interview that they interviewed you, Michelle, and I caught a little bit of that. I love this story.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the name for the book came sort of as a derivative of the company that we have, which is Platinum Literary Services, and we do editing and ghostwriting for that. And when we were coming up the name for the company, it kind of spawned off the hair, I will say, thinking of characteristics. But then when we started looking at Platinum, it had, the 12 characteristics that we put in the book, we were thinking about those in business terms and how that's the kind of company we wanted to be. All of those characteristics and elements and things, and top shelf and prestigious. And then we were at the Florida Christian Writers Conference just a few months later. And then it's 2 a.m. and we're texting each other because we weren't roommates that year.
Yeah.
And the problem is our agent was there and he set up a breakfast meeting, which neither one of us like to go to breakfast meetings.
We don't even go to breakfast. We never go to breakfast.
Kyle Young, and so he says, you guys need to have some things to pitch. And we're thinking, okay. So Michelle texts me and she's like, Platinum Literary, what about Platinum Faith? And taking that same concept with business, but actually applying it to our faith walk. And so we're texting the chapter breakdowns, right? Like at 2 a.m. Just long story short, the editor we pitched to that next morning was not interested. I bombed my whole portion. I couldn't hear them. People came and talked to me, and then I'm repeating. It was terrible.
It was the worst pitch of our lives because it was so loud in the cafeteria. And then one of our friends, Dale Didway, comes up right now. He doesn't know we're having this like serious pitch meeting. Comes up and just starts talking. He's got that big radio voice. And so Bethany can't hear what I'm saying. So I'm pitching the book based on this thing we did 4 hours ago on our phones. I mean, it's completely winging it. And then she doesn't hear what I say. So she says something completely different than what I just pitched. And you could tell the editor was like, is this the same book? Or, I mean, they're like, I'm going to kill all of you right now. I mean, it was just a hot mess. For people to know that you can completely bomb an open door like that. I will provide another one because you talk about walking with our tail between our legs the rest of the day. We're like, we are complete idiots. Are you kidding me? But then we were able to have another opportunity at Catalyst just a few months later. And we met with a publisher who actually, we were not going to go back to Catalyst in Atlanta. We'd already kind of done the show and gotten the article we were writing for One Christian Boy. So we'd done everything we really set out to do. And then Kyle once again.
There's Kyle.
Meet with you. You need to head back over. We're like, no, we're DONE on it. We're tired. Like, we're just going to
half makeup. We just got up. Like, hair's
not done. We didn't even want to get ready. But I told Bethany, I'm like, if we don't go, he will never let us hear the end of it. So I'm like, let's just go and make an appearance. So we did, and that's the day that we were able to pitch Platinum Faith, and the editor got it and said, I think we can do this book. We want this book. And so we're looking at each other like, oh my gosh. I mean, we just happened, just like without even a proposal or any sample chapters. It was just kind of a much better verbal pitch this time, because we'd have a few minutes to really kind of digest it. But that's how you know it's God, because we messed up the first one horribly. And then we got another chance, and it was the right publisher and the right editor. And she believed in this book before we even believed in it. And I'm so grateful for Karen Longino. I say her name wrong. Is it Longino? Longino? Longino.
Okay.
We love you, Karen.
We love you, Karen.
I showed this earlier. This is one of Michelle's books.
Yeah.
But I found something that reminded me of the two of you. And Michelle, you actually wrote this.
Oh.
So I want to read it because I
Okay.
thought you were so special. And I love the fact, let me just say this. I love the fact that both of you give back.
Oh,
You know, you are just not authors and speakers, but you pour so much of yourselves into other people, including myself. And I so appreciate both of you for that.
Aw.
thank
I really
you.
do.
We're glad to do it.
So it's called God's Pair. You may know this person, Michelle Medlock Adams.
Heard of her, yeah.
Heard of her. A special friend is hard to find. That's why I treasure you. We have a special kind of bond that only best friends do. You challenge me to push myself and reach for every star. You're always there to cheer me on, because that's the way you are. You're caring and you're genuine. You're special as can be. You look past all my shortcomings and help me laugh at me. I know that I am very blessed to have a friend like you. You make me feel so special by the little things you do. Our friendship's not by accident. God paired us up this way. That's why our friendship will remain forever and a day.
Oh,
Love that, Michelle.
thank you.
That makes me cry.
I know. I'm like, gosh, that was really special. I know. Yes, thank you for sharing that. I'd forgotten I'd written that. That was, it's funny because when I did that book, Yahweh Sisterhood, about women and the relationships that we have with other women and how they pour into us, the Bible speaks of that, about the older generations pouring into the younger generations.
Sure.
Those sisters across the miles, or the best friends that you have from childhood that continue to be your friends. And I've been blessed with many of those people in my life. But you find as you get older, your circle gets smaller.
Yeah.
But the friendships just get even more precious. And so I'm very blessed to have the people in my life that I do, including Bethany. And she's a little sister I never had, never wanted, but glad I have now. So it's like I wasn't looking for her, but God knew I needed her. And she said the same thing. She's like, I've been praying for a best friend. And, it just kind of, it was just the right thing. And, we fight like sisters fight, but we're actually as close as I think siblings can be. We don't agree on everything. We don't always come at everything from the same perspective, but there's a mutual respect. And I love her, and I would take a bullet for her. Don't mess with Bethany, I'm telling you right now. she's my family. So yeah,
It's so obvious. It's so obvious when the two of you are together. It really is.
And I'm the oldest in my family, and Michelle's the youngest. So we always said it was like God just knew, like we needed each other to kind of fill in that gap place.
Okay, so you quoted C.S. Lewis in the book, and this is what he says about friendship. Friendship is born at that very moment when one person says to another, "What? You too? I thought I was the only one."
Yeah.
I love that quote.
I love that. And I thought, so we're going to be talking, eventually we're going to be talking about your book, Platinum Faith, which is, let me just say, if you're seeing this for the first time, you want to get this book. We're going to share a little bit, but I'm telling you that it is so rich. There were times when I was crying, times when I was like just holding the book to my chest, times when I was shouting amen, times when I wanted to get up and dance, but I didn't want to get up really. So I danced in the spirit.
Aw, that's great.
It really is. It's one of those books that you know that it's not just a book you're reading once, that you're going to read it over and over and apply it to your life. So that's what makes it so, so precious as well. But, we talk about having platinum faith. Michelle, you shared in the book about Bear. Maybe you would share a little bit about him.
I sure will. He is my precious little grandson. He just turned 2 in August. We opened the book with that. I don't think this has just happened to us, but it seems like when you're when you're on a big mission for God, and anytime you embark on a book and you're writing anything that's going to make a difference, which we know this book was ordained by God, and we from the very beginning, the way it all happened, there's been quite a few attacks. Not that things don't happen in life, but Bethany and I both walked through some fire during the season of writing. And the very first, when you right out the gate, we were just starting the writing of Platinum Faith. We had just signed the contract. We only had like 3 months to finish the book. It was going to be a crazy intense deadline. So Jeff and I went away for a week of fishing because we love to fish down in Florida. And it was right before his tax season. He's a CPA. So it was like, before we both got really busy, let's go get away for what we thought would be a restful trip. We're in the middle of Okeechobee, which is a beautiful lake. It was a perfectly gorgeous day, blue sky, little tiny puffy white clouds. It was just gorgeous out there. And we get a call from Abby, our oldest daughter, telling us that she's taking Bear to the doctor because she thought he had an ear infection. He was kind of holding his head to the side. And that we were going to be dedicating her youngest daughter, my youngest granddaughter at the time, Bo Riley, who's got 2 names, like she has 2 names. She's from Kentucky, Bo Riley, not such a Southern name. Anyway, Bo was going to be dedicated at church that next Sunday, and we were going to be flying back for that. And I said, oh yeah, you don't want him to be sick for her dedication, do that. Anyway, what we thought was going to be just this, get some antibiotics and get home and rest. She calls sobbing. Whenever you get a call from your daughter and all you hear is sobbing, the mama heart, you go into overdrive, and I'm like, baby, what's going on? And she said, it's not an ear infection, Mom. We're going to get the MRI right now. Our pediatrician thinks it could be something much more. And I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, well, they want to get an MRI. They think that he could have some kind of a tumor in his brain. I'm like, we went from ear infection to brain tumor? How does that even happen? And so I was kind of in denial. I'm like, well, just call me back when you know that this isn't it. That was the longest 2 hours of my life. And then we get the call back, and we're still in the boat, like we're in the middle of nowhere. And I get the call, and she says, they found it, Mom. There's a tumor on Bear's brainstem, and a part of it that is inoperable. If they go in to get it, it'll kill him. It's the part that controls breathing and all the organs. And so we're kind of a wait and see. We don't know if it's cancer. We don't know what it is right now, but when can you get home? I'm like, I'm booking my flight right now. And we were on the phone, and she's telling me all these long words and medical terms, because I didn't go to medical school. I was a journalist, and all these things she's telling me, and she's hysterically and crying and so afraid. And I'm just listening, and I'm looking off into this beautiful blue sky, and out of nowhere, it was just like a movie, this little tiny rainbow drops out of a cloud. I'm telling you, there was not any rain in the forecast. It didn't rain the whole time we were there. But this little tiny, I said it was a bear-sized rainbow dropped out of the cloud. I snapped a picture with my cell phone because I wanted to always remember that. And I sent it to Abby as we were talking. I said, baby, this just happened. If it hadn't happened to me, I'm not sure I'd even believe it. Rainbows have always meant something so special to our family, as they do many people, because of the rainbow significance in the Bible. Sure. God's promise to never do that to the earth again. And I said, I believe that's our promise, that God's got this. And so you just stand firm, and we're going to believe God for the best in the situation. And that has kind of been what we've stood for this entire time. And every 6 weeks we have another MRI where they've been monitoring it. And had it been the kind of really aggressive cancer that they initially thought it was, it would have changed. It would have, he might not even be here now. It's pretty fast acting. But that was 6 months ago, and it hasn't changed shape. In fact, it looks a little smaller when you look at the MRIs. It hasn't gotten any bigger, and his balance is much better. And they thought that this brainstem tumor had impeded his hearing on his right ear. His ear was at least 30% where he couldn't hear, and maybe even more so. It depended on the test you looked at, but 30% it came up twice. They were looking at getting him some kind of a device to help him to hear better. And that thing was covered by insurance. It was just this crazy thing. And she was once again like, it's another battle. And I'm like, I don't care. And so this was on our way to the North Carolina Christian Writers Conference, a Serious Writer put on, when we got this call. And I'm like, I had all them praying. People are praying for Bear all over the world. I mean, it's crazy how social media can be a good thing. People are praying all over the world just from reading his story. And as I'm driving, I'm not kidding, as I'm on the phone with Bethany, the double rainbow went across the end of this, 2 rainbows across the interstate. I took another picture. I'm like, oh my gosh. It's like every time we start to get in fear, God just sends us this, like he sends us a bone. And do you know that Abby called back, not screaming, hysterically crying, but screaming with excitement. And she said, Mom, they ran the test again, and his hearing is perfect. Now, we've already had 2 confirmations. It was at least 30%. And the neurologist, pediatric neurologist, run it again. That can't be right, because they'd already done this twice. Completely restored. His hearing has been restored. And I'm telling you, I believe it's a miracle in progress. I call it my little miracle in the making. I believe that brainstem tumor is going to be completely obliterated before it's all over with. But even if it's not, that's what the whole first chapter is about. It's called Faith. Even if God chooses to handle this in a way that I wouldn't choose, that doesn't change my love for God, because his love for me is unconditional. And my faith for him is unconditional. That's what all in faith is. Even when you don't understand why things happen, or if your prayer wasn't answered, that is not any reflection of God's character or who he is or how much he loves you. You have to trust him and know that his ways are higher than our ways. And even though we may never understand, you have to have that all-in kind of faith. Because if you don't, if you get mad at him, you go the other way, he can't help you.
Sure.
And from the very beginning, that first chapter, all in faith, kind of sets the tone, because so many people, Joe, get mad at God if they don't get their prayers answered, or if, they pray for their mate to stay and their mate leaves with somebody else, or someone in their family doesn't get healed and goes ahead to heaven. But we have to just know that and trust God that even if things don't go exactly as we would have wanted it to, we have to trust God and have that all-in kind of faith. And so as we wrote this first chapter and we started this book, we didn't know Bear's fate. I didn't know if he would even be there when we finished the book. Yeah. You talk about a test of faith in the writing of a book. It seemed like every chapter there was something like that would happen. And we were kind of glad to turn it into the publisher. It's just like, hit that send button, man. But, it's just really, but to hear you say that it's powerful and that it affected you deeply, we're hearing that from lots of people, and it's confirmation that what we did was important. And it's the hardest book I've ever worked on in my life. And Bethany said the same thing. It was truly a labor of love, but just really seeking God in every chapter. And what do you have to say to us? Because we didn't want it just to be another fluffy book. I've written some of those, and we've read a lot of those, but we don't really have it be meaningful. And so thank you for asking about Bear. I appreciate all of your prayers. We're still in the middle of this, but every time we get an MRI, I'm telling you, I'm expecting it to be gone, because I just spent a week with him in Florida, and his balance is really good now, and he is talking like nonstop all the time. He wasn't saying any words before, so I can just see that God's hand is on this little boy.
I so hear what you're saying, because I have a son that 8 years ago, he was diagnosed with a brain tumor on right here on the base of his head, wrapped right around, they said, brain stem.
Yeah.
And so they were like, we're not sure what's going to happen. He could make it, he could not. We just don't know. And of course, the very first thing, if you knew me, you would know that I had a son that died the day before his second birthday.
Oh.
And so the very first thing I heard was, your son's going to die just like your other son died.
Oh, yeah.
And I have to, and you know what I'm talking about. It was like, you have to just say, kick him out of the way and just stand up and trust God. And the surgery went well. They had no complications. And the doctor came out and said, I believe that God was with me in that surgery.
Wow.
Yeah.
You don't hear that very often from a medical professional. I mean, that's such a cool thing. Oh.
Yeah, it is. It was life-changing. Absolutely life-changing for him and for our family. Yeah. And it's still something that I think holds us together even to this day. So it's just absolutely amazing.
Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. I love those kind of testimonies of God's faithfulness. Yes. I mean, that's, and we try to sprinkle this throughout the book. We really did, because there's just so much goodness to share about God. I think so many times the things we hear about God in the media is all bad news. Like people portray him as some big guy with a white beard with a big stick that's going to hit you on top of the head if you don't do what you're supposed to. And that is not the God that we serve. Of course, there are consequences to actions, but he is a loving God of grace and goodness who has plans that are good for us. I think we characterize him in a bad way somehow. And sometimes when I see those reports when people are not giving him glory, I think, you don't know the God I know. You don't know him like I know him. I wish, and I want them to, because they're missing out.
Absolutely. You talk about the woman with the issue of blood. I'm not sure who wrote that chapter,
Bethany.
But that story just speaks to me so much. You read it, and I think the more I read it, the more I get out of it, and the more I see things that I never saw before. And why don't you share a little bit about that?
Your sidebar is amazing on that, about the teaching, or however you say it. Share that, because every time you share it, I get chill bumps. It's so good.
It is.
I think it's a fascinating look into like the language that we sometimes miss in the English part of it. But so to sum it up, the Jewish, I would probably say men, probably, the prayer shawl had this thing called titzi. It's really T-zit when you write it out.
I was going to ask you how you pronounce it, because I wrote it down and I'm like, how do you say that?
And it's there's a verse in the Bible that commanded them to create this fringe on the outside of the garment, knotted, so that they could tangibly touch it to know, that God is sovereign, and it had specific meaning, this tzitzit. And then there's a verse, I think it's in Malachi, where it talks about healing in his wings. And so scholars say it's the same word phrasing that would relate back to the tzitzit on the prayer shawl.
Mhm.
So Jesus would have been wearing this as he was walking. And so when she's reaching out to touch him, it's more than just touching him. She's reaching for what they believe to be the tzitzit, the hem of his garment. And that's what she touches, because she knows when she touches him, she's saying, you are the Messiah. I know you can heal me. I know who you are. I just have to touch your wings. That tzitzit, it gives me chills. I have to touch the tzitzit. And so people were touching him. You always hear that when you hear the story. He's in this crowd and the power leaves him. Of course, he knows that she's, but it's that act of faith where she has to touch that, because it was her saying, I know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And she wasn't even supposed to be there. She's unclean. I mean, they could have killed her. I don't know. The law was very strict.
Yes.
And he knows someone touched me, because he knew it was that faith. It was that faith moment, and she was healed. And it makes me want to cry.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, it was so brave of her.
Mm-hmm.
That's so true. And I never even looked at it that way, how
Yes.
brave she had to have been.
It makes me cry. Like, I think she was amazing. Whoever that woman was, she was amazing.
What courage to step out in faith and do that, knowing that she could have been stoned or killed, or if they knew that. I mean, she was unclean according to their customs if she had been out and about with that, but she'd already done everything else. She'd done everything else. That's that. When you get to that point, you'll do anything. When you've tried everything else, you spend all your money on medical and nothing else will work. But you realize, if I can just touch the hem of his garment, if I can just reach to Jesus, and thank God we can do that now. We don't have to just reach for a garment. We can just, at any given moment, just say, Heavenly Father. We can say just Jesus' name and just call out on him, and he's right there. What a privilege we have to do that. And I don't think we use that enough. I think if people knew the real power in the name of Jesus. We used to sing that song in the Free Methodist Church growing up. Jesus, there's just something about that name.
Yeah.
I find myself when I've been even with this bear situation, when we were in the hospital and we were waiting for some results, and I flew in right from Florida, I just found myself in the hospital just singing that. It's because there's such power in that name. There's just something about that name. And I think we need to call on him more often. And we're hoping that this book will cause people to turn their hearts towards him and want to call on him. But in order to call on him, you have to know who he is, like Bethany said.
Right.
Know that he is the real deal. He is the Messiah. And that all those names, all those different names in the Bible, when we start doing research on what they all mean, he's all of those things. He's our healer. He's our provider. He's our comforter. He's our Abba Father. We can just crawl up in his lap and just love on me. All those things rolled into one. I mean, man, what a deal. It's like the full meal deal when you go to McDonald's. It's like everything. You don't have to choose. You get all of it. And it's just, I don't think people realize that he's all those things and that he's there for us. So I mean, man, and all of us have a privilege, those to not just know him, but then to share him with others. And that's through our writing and just through our speaking at the grocery store. It's such a privilege. I'm glad that we're all here for such a time as this. I always love that verse.
Yes.
We're in these last days, and when we are the ones that have the hope. There's not a lot of hope out there right now, but we have it.
I told you this, Michelle, the last time we had talked, that I had 2 traumatic brain injuries.
Yeah.
And I did not know who I was in any which way, shape, or form. I was such a mess. I could not function. I could not read. I could not drive. I lost so much of my life. And then I just remember my husband would tell me that every day he would go to work and I would say, just one more day, Jesus, just one more day. And okay, don't you start, because I'm going to.
I'm waterworks tonight. I'm telling you.
And I don't remember saying it, but he has told me over and over that that's what I was saying. And I'm telling you that God saved me in a way that I never knew I could ever have a life again. I just thought this was going to be what it was. And I would never, but God had a plan.
Yes, he did.
Yes, God had a plan. And I'm so grateful to him, because I don't know why I came back and somebody else did not. But my mind came back, and it came back even greater than what it was before. And more thirst for him. And,
I love that.
my heart just overflows with so much love for him and so much appreciation for everything that he's done.
I love what you said about that it came back even better than before, because when God restores something, he doesn't just take it to its original, he takes it for our past.
Yes.
He doesn't do it halfway or even to its original, but he'll do it above and beyond, the word says. So your restoration, I mean, it wasn't just like, okay, this is where you were. Nope, we're going to give you extra help of this and dose of this, because he knew that you were going to be using these last days the way you're being used. And I what a testimony. That's amazing testimony, Joe.
Well, I think that there are all kinds of testimonies that God wants people to share. And I think that's why I'm starting in the midst of the journey, like I said, because I believe
I
that
love that.
not only authors, but I believe that there's a lot of women who have these testimonies
Yes.
that we need to hear. Because I know that as women, we all need to be encouraged. We all need to know that, we are not alone. As C.S. Lewis was saying, we're not alone. It is, we're all dealing with, listen, we're all here tonight and everybody's dressed nice and, their hair is done. But the reality is we're still all dealing with stuff in our lives.
That's absolutely right.
Yep.
We talk about that a little bit in the book
Yeah.
and chapters about authenticity that, those are one of the chapters I wrote. Platinum is a metal that's heavy and it's the shiniest metal of all the white metals. It's kind of hard to counterfeit. You can counterfeit sterling silver and gold and some of those a little easier, but platinum has so many unique properties. It's really hard to you'll know if it's platinum if it is, just by the weight of it and the way it looks and the way it doesn't tarnish like others. And so in that chapter, we point out that, there's this one saying, I think Abraham Lincoln's been loosely associated with it, but they'll say you can fool some people all the time,
Yep.
and other people some of the time, but you can't fool yourself any of the time. And you know what? You can't fool God either. And so it's like to come to him with not that Pharisee fake kind of faith, but to come to him with your authenticity. And it's okay to be real with God and just say, I'm a hot mess. I interviewed Vicki Durstock earlier today, and she said, I am often on the Hot Mess Express. I'm like, girl, I have a ticket for that too. I'm on that too. And
Right here.
it's okay, right? Like we've all been riding that. And so to just own that and just, God already knows anyway. We don't need to be all like fake and, I mean, I don't know if you guys, maybe I'm the only one, but there's been many times when we've gone into church and, the girls were little and they were in the back and they were fighting. I mean, 5 minutes we went into church, I threatened them and, I've hollered and they each other. And it's just, you think, why are we even bothering? And then you get out and like everybody's had a big knockdown drag out and you walk in and somebody says, how are you? Like, oh, I'm blessed, sister. No, really, you're just a hot mess. You just had a big fight with your husband. You yelled at the kids. I mean, like, but you become Sylvia Super Christian when you walk in the church. Yeah, I'm just blessed and hallelujah, and your hands are raised and like, really, you're just a mess. What I really need to do is be prostrate on the floor at the altar to somebody pray for me, like I'm a mess. But we are so prideful and so inauthentic sometimes because I think it's a fear. We don't want let anybody in or know that we've got some hurts and some issues. And I think it's just so much better to just be real with our girlfriends, real with the world. It's so much easier to receive from somebody who's being real. It's when somebody's super spiritual and you don't think that they've ever sinned or done anything wrong. I can't receive from them because I don't understand them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's why we love Joyce Meyer, because she's like,
awesome.
Dave and I had a fight on the way here and the dog threw up on the carpet and then she'll say, I'm a crud ball. I'm like, I'm a crud ball too. I can be your friend. I mean, you immediately relate to her. And I think that's what we have to be. And that's really what, in both this book and our book about moms, we really tried to just be real. We both told stories we've never told before. We were trying to be real and raw and vulnerable. And we would read to each other and be like, can we say that? Do you think it's okay? And they were like, I don't know, let's think about it. Like we weren't even sure because it's stuff that's so raw. We weren't even sure we should tell it. And yet God wouldn't let us not tell it. I think you have to be authentic in your faith with yourself, with God, obviously, but with others too. Then that will let their fake facade, Sylvia Christian thing come down and they can be real. And then we can really start someplace and say, what do you need? What do you need from God today? How can I pray for you? How can we lift up your arms? I just think that there's not enough of that today with the social media. And, as I said, if Pharisees had had selfie sticks, they'd have been taking pictures, like we do at the synagogue and going, hashtag giving so much money today, hashtag I'm better than you are, hashtag, like, right? And we don't want to be those people. I mean, we have to do a good selfie, but we also need to kind of show our stuff once in a while, let people know we're real and that we're not perfect, because boy, are we not.
I so associate with that because I have had times when my husband and I have argued and we're, walking in the door or doing the same thing, hey, I'm doing great. I really look at that though as wearing masks that I've worn so much of my life. Trying to be somebody that I'm not, looking at somebody else that, oh, I wish I was doing that. It wasn't my journey. It's, it has life and what I'm doing has nothing to do with each of you or anybody else. It's my journey with God. And I have to be able to recognize that I am a daughter of the Most High God.
Amen.
And that, what, the devil doesn't want me to follow in my journey or my path, but those masks, I tell you, they've had to come down many times on my own life where I just felt so inadequate and so depressed and so many things, from my childhood. And, we all have dealing with those kind of things, and we need to get real. And I really believe that with all my heart. God just wants us to be real. And so that, what, if I have going through something and you're going through something, what, we can talk about it and not be ashamed.
Yes, that is so rich. It's so easy to say, but so hard to do.
It's very hard.
To be real with yourself and with each other and with God. I mean, I guess because it takes us out of our comfort zone. And, anytime you take the mask off and have to reveal who we are, that's scary stuff. Even in little things that might seem like a little thing to you can be a huge thing if it affects how you feel about yourself. Bethany and I were talking earlier, she's been dealing, I want to talk about this. One of the chapters talks about she's allergic basically to paper, and she's an author. It's really kind of a hard thing to do if you're an author. And so she used to wear gloves. And so like she had to wear them at our book signing. And talk a little bit about that, because that's one of our chapters.
Yes. I mean, how many authors do you know who are allergic to paper?
Talk about your own cross to bear. That's so ridiculous, actually. Yeah.
I'm so introverted. I love to be home. Like, it's my favorite thing. Everything that has to do with books, like coloring when that was a phase, I love that. Scrapbooking right now, like I'm addicted to planners because you can, decorate and write in them. So all those quiet, I call them quiet adventures now. I love it. And then,
so wait, let me just say,
okay,
you are into planners.
love them so much.
I know you do. That's why I'm saying it.
Like, they're like DVD.
It's crazy. Yeah.
I love it so much. I even did a live video today.
I saw it. Yep.
Like, I need to do this, so I'm going to go ahead and try it. Energy planning. I know. But when we moved to Mississippi, it was almost 4 years ago. My hand started cracking on the drive, and it was 12-hour drive. We drove straight through, and I was driving my friend's car, and I thought maybe just touching her steering wheel cover, I think it was some kind of like leather or something, maybe that had just affected my hands. So, because I remember thinking when I arrived at the new house, this was a problem, but it just got worse. And so I thought maybe it was something to do with Mississippi. And it's just one of the situations that I know so many people are in. Something's wrong. It's irritating and bothering. People like, go see a doctor. And you kind of get dismissed, like it's just dermatitis, it's eczema, and nothing's working. And so then now you're praying like, okay, God, something's happening. Please let me find a doctor, someone who knows what's going on, because this is becoming a problem. And my hands would just get real dry and cracked and bleed all the time. I can't know how many times we would be writing and I'd be, putting Band-Aids on my fingers to keep typing, and it's awful. And then finally I met this doctor, and he looked at my hands and he said, I don't know what's causing it. He said, but based on your healthy fingers over here, pinkies and the ring finger, and where the patterns are on the inside of your hands, he's like, you're touching something and you're holding something that's causing this. He goes, that's evident. So they did patch testing on my back. I think I talked to Michelle like probably every 5 minutes over the course of the week, like with updates.
I wanted to know what was going on. I'm like, oh my gosh, we've got to get to the bottom of this.
Man, so like they do the patch test on your back. They put all these different allergens in this grid, and they tape you up, which I'm allergic to tape. So they tape you up, and you can't shower. You can't do anything for like 48 hours. And then they peel the tape off, make measurements, and then you have to go like another 2 days keeping it on your back without the tape so they can do another measurement, because things still react. But as soon as she took the tape off, I know it was over here on this side, and the nurse just is like, whoa. She's like, that's big. I'm like, I can feel it, whatever it is. Yeah. And so she pulls out her grid sheet to see what it was, and she's like, what's colophony? And I'm like, you're supposed to know. I don't know. And she's like, well, the doctor will know. So, you go in the other room and the doctor says the same thing. So they're looking it up. And I'm thinking, it's on your grid test. Like, I cannot be the only one. And, but basically it's pine resin. And she kept asking me, do you play the violin? She kept coming back to the violin because they make the bow resin out of that. But when you look it up, it's in anything that waterproofs or coats. It's in plastic, unless it's BPA, non-BPA. Like, I can touch that plastic and be fine. But like our book cover, because the coating on the book, it's in ink, newspaper, magazines, tape, stickers, adhesives. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And I was like, this is like the worst thing for my life because I touch all this stuff, and I was homeschooling at the time too. So I'm filled with paper and all this stuff, and it's a journey that's just not going to go away. There's no known cure, and it's just prevention. And so that's one of the chapters in the book where we talk about some, prevention, and then God's prevention, and then protection, and comparing those two things. And all these chapters kind of tie in together because like it goes back to the withstands the heat. We're all going to have fiery furnaces and trials in our lives, and some are going to be much more severe than other people's. Mine is more of an annoyance or a hindrance in comparison to a lot of people's issues that are going on. And but I just keep thinking back to like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And Michelle said it with the all in faith. They told the king, like, we know God can save us from that furnace. We know he can. But even if he doesn't, we're still going to believe. And that's kind of where I'm at with this allergy. I mean, God could heal it, no problem, right? But even if he doesn't, then I'm just going to pray that I can be used through it. And so just hoping that to be an encouragement to anybody who's going through something big, like Bear's tumor. I mean, that's huge.
Or even chronic illness of any kind. Like you wake up and you hurt every day. Like, those are hard things to bear.
Or relationships, marriage, family. I mean, all those things. And just thinking, okay, how is God going to use this someday? And I want to make sure that I can look back and say, okay, this is what I learned, and this is how I can help people, because whining about it is fun, but it doesn't help anybody.
Well, what is it they say? They say without a great test, you can't have a great testimony. And I think,
I like that.
Think about that whenever you're going through these things. I think it's interesting that your hands are being attacked, which are the things you use to write the changing words. I think that is not a coincidence. I think those are the kind of things that where you go, all right, I see you, devil. I see what you're doing. Bigger, but I do love that chapter with Stands the Heat. That's one of the things about platinum is, I think Bethany researched it can take up to 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit or something. Is that right?
Higher, yeah. It's
not like that before it will, be destroyed. And so as Christians, we really have to be able to withstand the heat when things come against us, because it's not an easy life sometimes. I mean, it's so easy to withstand the heat when you're on top of the mountain. Those mountaintop experiences, it's so easy to be in faith then because everything's going your way, winning awards and marriage is great, we're on vacation, everything's good. But when, you get that call from the midnight call, somebody's been in an accident, or you get the call from your daughter that says your grandson's got a brainstem tumor when you thought it was an ear infection, or, whatever it is you're going through, you get that call, or something, you lose your job, you don't need finances. Those valley moments, it's a whole lot harder to stand and walk in faith. And it says in the Bible, when you've done everything else, stand, just standing in faith and withstanding that heat, just knowing that God is my protector, he is my provider. And we talk about just digging into the word and finding those promises that are yours and just sitting on those in the midst of the trial, in the midst of the fiery furnace, whatever your fiery furnace happens to be, because with platinum faith, you can withstand the heat. And not that that's an easy thing, but the world's watching us. When they know that you proclaim to be a Christian, they are watching us. They want to know how you're going to react when you're faced with a fiery furnace. They're watching to see your witness. Are you really who you say you are? Because really, they're hoping that you are, because they're looking for hope. They're looking for somebody who's got something real. They've seen enough of the fake stuff. They've seen the fake Christians. They're hoping that you'll keep it together. So I think, and we don't always do that, but even when we don't, God is still right there to pick us up and be gracious. And I just think that I can look over my life and see all the times when, just like that story about the footprints where God carried you. Yes. I can see the times when there was just one set of footprints, and I too thought God had abandoned me. I'm like, are you on vacation? Are you seeing what's going on here? You're crying out and you're hearing nothing. It's crickets. Like, where'd he go? And yet God is really carrying you through those times. And and you don't ever have to face that fiery furnace alone. But sometimes it feels like you're alone, and you just can't be led by your feelings. You only have to go by faith. And we put that out in the book too, because that's easy to say, but sometimes the feelings just are so real. It's so hard to know that God is still there and he still loves you and he still has got this all under control when you feel so out of control. But we can't go by feelings. Our feelings will lie to us every time.
They will. I just want to stop for a second and see if anybody has any questions. We do have people here. Oh, Peggy Sue Wells. I knew she would say something.
Oh, I love Peggy Sue. I got to see two of her beautiful daughters in Maranatha.
Yes.
Esty was there, and I got to see a couple.
Okay, so Peggy Sue said she knows you two are sisters because you can both talk that fast.
We've been told that, yeah. It's true.
Right, that was going to be one of my questions. She wants to know, what are you doing next?
Well, we do have a 2-book contract with Abingdon. I'm hoping we pitched an idea for the follow-up to Platinum Faith, and if it wasn't anybody that had the decision-making power when we pitched it, but the people that at Abingdon that we pitched it to seemed excited about it. So we're hoping that they're going to go for it. And that will be probably the next thing that we start on, since that will be it would release next year. I guess we're going to promote our mom book, They Call Me Mom, that comes out next month. And then we'll get on this next book, which we hope is going to be just as powerful, if not more so. But we're excited. Actually, Bethany came up with the idea for the second book, and I know it's of God, because we really didn't know where to go next. And the one that they suggested, we weren't feeling it, and we were like, oh, I don't know if that's really what God wants us to do. But this one we're pretty excited about. So we're afraid to reveal what it is because we don't know if they're going to prove it yet.
I know.
Really good, yeah. So be in prayer that they go for it. But yeah, we have another book to do together at Abingdon. So
We think it's timely. We keep hearing things in the news about like the subject matter, and we're like, this is the time.
We'll text each other. We're like, did you see that? It's total confirmation. We're like all excited.
Well, I thought when I was reading it, what a great Bible study it would be with some videos that you guys could do. And that's what I saw every time I was, like going through some of the stuff and the questions. You have great discussion questions in there. But that's what I thought. I thought it would be a great Bible study.
That's part of what we're doing too. So kind of like with the marketing, marketing is a fun word for me, but a lot of people don't like it. But that's really what we consider marketing to be, is how can we create things that are going to touch people's lives? And so we actually have an option. We get to write the Bible studies that are going to come from this book. And so we have plans to take each chapter, do videos like this back and forth, and create even more resources for women's ministries, so they can download them and use them in like group settings, even when we can't be there to speak in person. So that's part of what's in the pipeline coming.
That's right. And the Platinum Faith podcast, which is going to, that's been in the works longer than we'd like to admit, but we finally, my daughter Allison, who's my baby girl, they moved back to our hometown, so I get to see baby Ren every day. But she's here now, in fact. But she is, she's even younger than Bethany, so she's like all about this technology stuff. So she's figured out how to help us with our podcast. So we'll be starting the Platinum Faith podcast probably after the first of the year. So we're pretty excited about that.
Very excited about that.
Does anybody have any other questions? I'm not seeing any questions. So let me just say again, because I want to make sure that I get the book up again. I think you can see that pretty well, Platinum Faith. And again, it's a book that I think every woman should have their hands on. I really believe. And I encourage you not to just buy a copy for yourself, but to buy some copies to give away to some of the women that you know, because even a neighbor that maybe who doesn't know the Lord, would really love to read something like this. I have felt in my heart, over in my spirit the last few days, that God wanted to do something a little different at the end. But I want to make sure that there's nothing else that the two of you want to share. Maybe you could talk about Serious Writer.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And maybe share a little bit about that.
Oh, well, I'd love to. So we mentioned Kyle Young, our agent. He is my business partner in Serious Writer. He has a faith story too. He's a pastor at his church full time. And he started writing seriously after he and his wife lost their daughter. She was stillborn, their oldest piece. And so he started writing out of grief, and then started going to writers' conferences and testing himself as a writer, entering contests, and ended up becoming an agent. We met him through writers' conferences before he became our agent. And so he brought Almost an Author, which is a website that he created, and I brought an academy, and we formed Serious Writer Inc. Michelle is our is the chair. We have a very prestigious advisory board. My mom is on that board. Michelle is our chair queen, not
I have
chair
a crown and everything. It's very exciting.
queen. And so our whole mission is to have really take over the Christian and clean writing markets. As we see, you know, the Christians bookstores closing, we believe Walmart, Target, some of these bigger stores are going to start carrying inspirational lines. Christians need to be the ones writing these books for this vacuum. And so we just want to do online courses. We have a club that is open right now until October 6th. Michelle and Kyle will both be in Chicago on
And
October
so
12th.
will I. And so
And
will I.
you, I'm so jealous. I wish I could be there with you guys.
I
Just
wish you
one
could be
day.
there too.
Yes.
And we have the Ohio Christian Writers Conference coming up. So we just try to do as much as we can to really help people who want to write or maybe feel like God's led them in this path to give them the right information, because there's so much out there, because we're all working in the industry. So we'll be like, listen, this is what you need to do.
That's right.
Don't do these things. You know, and anytime we can make connections for people, I think that's what Michelle and I love the most is we see someone, we're like, I can get you in with this person. I can make this introduction. I can make this connection. That's my favorite part of what we do, is that part.
I love that they're kind of the thing I like about Serious Writer, and why I was happy to be like the chair queen of the board, is that I see how it's different from everything else that's out there. Like, they are being so over generous. That's kind of their theme. That came from one of the people that we love in our lives, which is Gene Weiland, who kind of coined that phrase, to be over generous in every situation. And I think every decision that's made at Serious Writer goes back to that kind of core belief. Let's be over generous with information, with handouts, with, you know, just ourself, our time, with our contacts. That's not the thing. I mean, I've been at plenty of other writers' conferences, you know, in the secular world too, where people don't share editors' names with you or make connections. They're afraid you'll take their work. It's not like that with this group. It's a different feel. And people have said that, but I can attest to it. I absolutely love what they're doing. And I love that they're doing like the one days too, that are a little less expensive.
Yes.
And you can take off work. It's just a one day commitment. You just come for the day, and it's a great kind of, I think they're like booster shots throughout the year. You have a couple big conferences to go to, but these, you know, after 5 or 6 months, you're like, why am I a writer? I've gotten 12 more rejection letters. You start to get discouraged, because it's a very lonely career. Even if it's just a side thing, it can be lonely. But you see, you need to get with your people, with your tribe, and go back to the Serious Writer, get a little booster shot one day, and like, you know, just it's just what you need to get to that next big writers conference. And we love them. I mean, we've been all over the country doing them, and Kyle's done somewhat internationally, you know, overseas, and I believe it's just going to continue to grow because it's needed. And Bethany and Kyle are two of the finest people I've ever known, and their hearts are as big as anything, as big as Texas. I mean, it is. It's just crazy.
Right back at you.
Writers, they do. They love writers, and that's what it's got to be. It's not a competitive thing. It's a, how can we help you? I love that.
What's funny is that when Kyle and I met, it was at a writers conference. We were competing in the same contest. We both had written YA that year, and we were up for the SELAs at the Blue Ridge Conference. Unbeknownst to us, Michelle was also the third person in this category and beat both of us. So I think that kind of keeps us on our toes. Another reason she's the chair queen. But just to echo what she said, you know, you brought up friendships at the beginning of this, and life is hard, and you have to have people who are willing to go with you in the valley, because because the other side, like once you get through the valley, it's going to be sunshine and roses for a while, but it's dark sometimes, and you have to have people who will love you through that. And that's who Kyle and Michelle are to me, and I met them through this. And you know, and that goes into the book too. We talk about relationships, and you have to be open to community and being willing to bond with other people. God created us for that type of relationship, and it's not easy and it's not pretty. But when you love people, you know, you get those close people, you just endure the valleys with them, because you know it's going to be good on the other side of it.
That's right. I love that.
I was
That's so
saying
true.
earlier that when I had interviewed Liz Curtis Higgs last year, I asked her to do this, and the next day she sent me a note and she said, you know, no one's interviewed me and asked me to do this before. And it's really on my heart that, you know, we sit here and we talk about, you know, Jesus, and we talk about the book and all of those things, and we laugh and have a great time. But this is all about Jesus.
Yeah.
And so somebody may be watching this who doesn't know Jesus or doesn't know who we're talking about, you know, who's going through some of the things that we've been talking about. And so I really felt that I was just going to sing this little song. And it seems to be a song that God keeps giving me, and he won't let me leave it. So I'm going to do that. And then if one of you or both of you want to pray, I would just really appreciate it. And I so appreciate all of your time tonight, both of you. I love you both.
Oh, we love you too.
Before the world began, you were on his mind, and every tear you've cried is precious in his eyes. Because of his great love, he gave his only son, and everything was done so you would come. Nothing you can do could make him love you more, and nothing that you said could make him close the door. Because of his great love, he gave his only son, and everything was done so you would come. Come to the Father, though you give so small. Broken hearts, broken lives, he will take them all. The power of the word, the power of his blood, everything was done so you would come. Everything was done so you would come.
Father God, I thank you so much for this time that we could all be together, and thank you for Joe's heart and just for her willingness to be obedient to what you've instructed for us to do in the remainder of our time together. Lord, we're just honored that you would let us do this, that we could come together with these other women and just glorify your name and be able to share about your goodness and your faithfulness and the track record that we have with you, the things that you've done for us and continue to do, Lord, that you're faithful even when we're not faithful. Yes. We are honored, both Bethany and I, that we could even be able to write a book like this, and we know that you were in it. And so we, regardless of awards and numbers and, you know, new contracts and things, Father, the reason that we're in this, the reason that we're all in this is all about your Son. And Lord, we just want to glorify you and introduce you to other people, to let them know that there's hope, and that you really truly are the God who loves us unconditionally, and who has a plan for us, and who has chosen us and adopted us into your family even before we never deserved it, but that you loved us anyway. And so I just thank you that we can walk in this journey of faith, and not that it be a hard thing every day, but Lord, even when it is hard, knowing that we're not alone makes it so much easier, knowing that you're going before us, and that you've been in our past, and you're in our present, and that you're in our future, and that you're a God that doesn't change, that you love us unconditionally throughout, Father, in the valleys and on top of the mountains, that you're with us. We just ask, Lord, that you give us more opportunities to be able to share, each one of us, with our neighbors and with people in our paths that maybe need you and have never met you, that you'll provide openings, Lord, for us to be able to share our faith. And we ask, Father, for you to protect our families and our loved ones, and Lord, that we can be inspirational in their lives through our words that we write, through the songs that we sing, through our very lives as people watch us go forward and lead these faithful lives, this what we hope to be platinum faith kind of lives that glorify you, even when we're crud boss, Lord. We're glad that you're not and that you still love us. And so, gosh, we just commit all of this to you and ask that you order our steps, as it says in the Bible that you already do. We thank you for it, that we'll have clear direction, each one of us, as we go into this new season of writing or speaking, whatever it is that you've got us on the agenda. We are excited to go forward being your daughters. And Lord, help us to never forget that we truly are your daughters of the Most High King, and that we are chosen and worthy and special and rare and all the things that you've called us to be. We love you and we give you glory and honor. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.
Amen.
Mm. Woo. Well, we love you. Everyone says hello. Everyone is waving. We so appreciate both of you and taking the time tonight to be with us. I know life is busy, but just keep doing what you're doing, because you're making a difference.
Thank you. And
And
also,
Thanks.
yeah.
You keep doing what you're doing too. This is amazing. What a great outlet for people to come and share about their journeys of faith and their books, and to have that camaraderie. We need that. We need more of that. And so thanks for having that outlet. That's a ministry in itself. I recognize that. And so to have got to be on the show twice, I'm like, woohoo.
I love that people are here live. Like, I think that is so fun.
Yeah.
You guys are together and you get to do this. I mean, I think that's.
It's really cool. Of course, there's always stuff to eat. And
Yeah, I'm jealous. I'm like, I'm so sad.
well, thank you both again so very much. And Michelle, I'm bringing my friend Marion with me next week, so we'll see you.
Oh, good. I look forward to it.
And Bethany, I'll see you next week on Serious Writer.
Yes.
Okay. God bless both of you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
See if I can end this. I'm trying to end.